Did you know that Harrison Ford survived an emergency landing? Kirk Douglas escaped a mid-air collision? And Jackie Chan came perilously close to losing his life on set? Hollywood is filled with incredible near misses like these, each surrounded by questions of fate, sabotage, or pure coincidence. Today, we'll delve together into the stories behind these celebrity close calls. Well, many of these were not accidents, but attempts to end the star. Stay tuned and listen to stories that you have never heard before. 1. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift's career soared in the 1950s with roles in From Here to Eternity and A Place in the Sun. But a single car ride in 1956 nearly ended everything. Late one evening, after attending a party hosted by his close friend Elizabeth Taylor, Clift veered off a winding road in Beverly Hills. The crash was so severe that witnesses later described his face as unrecognizable. In the immediate aftermath, Taylor herself rushed to the wreck, reportedly yanking broken teeth from his throat to prevent him from choking. News accounts and medical reports confirmed that Clift sustained a broken jaw, shattered nose, and extensive facial lacerations. Studio execs feared his looks, and thus his career, were irreparably damaged. Meanwhile, conspiracy theories emerged, some blaming a supposed rival actor, others speculating about Clift's own hidden personal battles. A few tabloids twisted the story to suggest that Clift's accident had been staged for insurance fraud, an idea swiftly debunked by law enforcement. While doctors performed reconstructive surgery, the rumor mill spun wildly. Ultimately, Clift did return to acting, but was never the same physically or emotionally. Despite lingering speculation, the consensus remains that exhaustion and intoxication, rather than foul play, lay at the heart of the near-fatal collision. 2. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor was Hollywood royalty, but in 1961 she fought a brutal battle with pneumonia that almost cost her life. Amid the lavish production of Cleopatra, Taylor's health took a sudden nosedive. Studios scrambled to save the film from looming disaster. As Variety reported at the time, she was rushed to a London hospital, placed in an oxygen tent, and subjected to an emergency tracheotomy to help her breathe. Fans were stunned by photos revealing the incision in her throat, a stark contrast to her usual image of sultry glamour. Gossip columns whispered that the production's chaotic schedule was a direct factor, with some even alleging sabotage. According to a biography by C. David Heyman, rumors circulated about jealous co-stars or feuding producers who wanted Taylor off the film or in a weakened position. Yet doctors affirmed that the pneumonia was a standard complication, exacerbated by relentless work and the poor London climate. The near-death moment sparked an outpouring of concern from fans worldwide, fueling a wave of get-well cards and fervent prayers. Though the conspiracies faded once Taylor made a triumphant recovery, the star herself counted the incident among her most frightening experiences, an unexpected reminder that beauty and fame provide no immunity from mortal peril. 3. Buster Keaton. Comedy legend Buster Keaton was famed for performing jaw-dropping stunts without flinching or blinking. Yet his 1928 film Steamboat Bill Jr. nearly ended in true tragedy. In one of the silent era's most iconic scenes, a two-story house facade collapses around Keaton, leaving him standing unharmed in a tiny open window. The margin for error was frighteningly small. If Keaton stood even a few inches off his mark, the wooden wall would have crushed him. Contemporary reports from Photoplay magazine marveled at the stunt's precision, but insiders whispered about the oppressive pressures Keaton faced under contract. Some conspiracy-minded fans later insinuated that the rigging crew had voiced safety concerns that were ignored, suggesting the entire scenario was a studio dare to keep costs low. If the stunt had gone wrong, many believed the studio would have quietly settled and spun the story to protect profits. Instead, Keaton pulled off the scene in a single take. No protective harness, no advanced computer modeling. Afterwards, crew members claimed they had never seen the unflappable comedian so shaken. While official accounts chalk the stunt up to Keaton's perfectionism, rumors of corners cut to achieve the risky spectacle remain part of the film's mystique to this day. 4. Harold Lloyd. In 1919, Harold Lloyd was already a beloved comic figure when he posed for publicity stills that called for him to light what he believed was a prop smoke bomb. To his horror, it turned out to be a live explosive. The resulting blast blew off his right thumb and index finger, scorching his face and nearly killing him. Motion Picture Magazine covered the incident extensively, noting that Lloyd's popularity soared afterward, perhaps due to public sympathy. Urban legends flourished almost immediately. Some insisted a jealous rival actor had switched the prop. Others theorized that Lloyd, under pressure from producers, had pushed for a more sensational promotional shoot that backfired. In reality, the film company's official investigation concluded it was a tragic mix-up. A real explosive had been mixed in with stage props. For Lloyd, the injury was life-altering. He adapted by wearing a prosthetic glove and learned to grip props and dangle off buildings, as famously seen in Safety Last, without revealing his disability. Though official accounts dismissed the sabotage angle, the rumor persisted in fan magazines well into the 1920s. Lloyd's remarkable comeback stands as a testament to old Hollywood's blend of resilience, spectacle, and sometimes perilous showmanship. 5th. Margaret Hamilton. Margaret Hamilton became immortalized as the Wicked Witch of the West in 1939's The Wizard of Oz, but a special effects mishap during filming almost proved deadly. While disappearing in a puff of smoke through a trap door, Hamilton's cape caught fire from the pyrotechnics used to create her dramatic exit. According to eyewitness accounts published in Photoplay, flames engulfed her hands and face before crew members managed to extinguish them. Hospitalized for severe burns, Hamilton missed several weeks of production. Fueled by sensational headlines, rumors hinted that the accident was no accident. Some alleged a disgruntled stagehand disliked Hamilton's demanding presence. Others suggested Hamilton herself was frustrated with her typecasting and orchestrated a stunt gone wrong, an implausible idea given her painful injuries. Ultimately, an internal MGM report cited poor timing between the stage pyro and trap door operator as the straightforward cause. Although Hamilton returned to the set, she refused to perform further fire-related stunts. The public, meanwhile, latched onto the irony that the actress playing a notorious witch had nearly been burned at the stake. Whispers of sabotage or curses quietly lingered among superstitious fans, but Hamilton always dismissed them, attributing her survival to quick-thinking colleagues and sheer luck. 6. Buddy Ebsen. Buddy Ebsen was initially cast as the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz before Jack Haley took over the role. What many don't realize is that Ebsen's departure stemmed from a harrowing, near-fatal experience. The original Tin Man makeup contained aluminum dust, which Ebsen inhaled over repeated applications. Accounts in Variety reported that Ebsen developed severe respiratory problems, so severe that he ended up in an oxygen tent, fighting for his life. Speculation ran rampant, especially since MGM replaced him quietly without much public explanation. Some conspiracists pointed to studio intrigue, alleging a sabotage plot from rival actors eyeing the part. Others theorized Ebsen was blacklisted for behind-the-scenes disagreements and that the allergic reaction story was just a cover-up. However, Ebsen later clarified in interviews that he experienced violent coughing fits and lung spasms, confirming a genuine medical emergency caused by the makeup's toxic dust. After a grueling recovery, Ebsen managed to continue his career, most famously in TV's The Beverly Hillbillies decades later. Though the conspiracy whispers eventually died down, the incident remains a stark example of Golden Age production hazards, where innovative but untested makeup and costume techniques could, quite literally, suffocate an actor. 7. Claudette Colbert. Claudette Colbert's grace and wit made her a star in films like It Happened One Night, but danger struck on the set of Cecil B. DeMille's 1934 epic Cleopatra. While shooting a pivotal river scene, Colbert was required to wade through water for an extended period under heavy costumes and accessories. According to set reports archived in the Los Angeles Examiner, she slipped on the submerged set piece and was momentarily trapped beneath the surface, her headdress tangling in hidden cables. Studio chatter insinuated that the scene had been rushed to meet a looming deadline, with minimal rehearsals. Word spread through gossip columns that the accident might have been orchestrated by an envious co-star. Some even claimed DeMille was a known taskmaster who ignored safety warnings in favor of spectacle. Official production notes, however, cited a simple misstep combined with the complexities of filming an elaborate underwater sequence. Colbert emerged visibly shaken, nursing bruises and a waterlogged respiratory system that could have led to pneumonia had she inhaled more fluid. Yet she soldiered on, embodying the show must go on ethos. Though some fans held on to the sabotage theory, most credited the fiasco to Hollywood's persistent pursuit of realism, often at the expense of personal well-being. 8. Esther Williams. Esther Williams, known as America's Mermaid, built an entire career on aquatic musicals that dazzled audiences with synchronized swimming and lavish water ballets. Her starring role in Million Dollar Mermaid, 1952, required a high dive from a 50-foot platform into a pool. As chronicled in her autobiography, Williams miscalculated one of the dives and hit the water at an awkward angle, fracturing her neck. Medical reports from the era confirm she narrowly avoided paralysis, or worse. Rumors quickly floated around the MGM lot. Some whispered that the production had demanded repeated takes, disregarding clear safety violations. Others blamed potential sabotage by rivals who envied Williams's swift rise in the studio system. Williams later dismissed the idea of foul play, chalking up the tragedy to a combination of performance pressure and insufficient protective gear. During her grueling recovery, tabloids breathlessly reported on every phase of her rehabilitation, speculating whether she'd ever swim or dance again. Doctors warned her that returning to synchronized swimming might be impossible. Defying the odds, Williams did make a comeback, though she remained cautious about the stunts she performed. The near miss became legendary, a testament both to Williams's resilience and the risky nature of Hollywood's aquatic spectacles. 9th, Judy Garland. Judy Garland, the voice behind The Wizard of Oz's Over the Rainbow, endured a tumultuous career that included more than one brush with death. In 1959, she was rushed to a hospital for what newspapers described as an accidental drug overdose. Biographers later revealed that Garland, pushed by the studio system from a young age, frequently took barbiturates and amphetamines to maintain her grueling work schedule and control her weight. The cumulative effect proved disastrous. Conspiracy theories emerged swiftly. A few tabloids suggested the overdose was a desperate publicity stunt. Others insinuated that it was part of a deeper, more sinister plot by studio executives to keep Garland dependent on medication and under their control. Friends of the star vehemently denied such claims, pointing instead to a toxic environment where pills were handed out like candy to keep performers in line. Although doctors stabilized Garland's condition, her health remained precarious. She later recounted in interviews how the near-fatal episode forced her to reassess her relationships in Hollywood. Publicly, the final verdict was that her collapse stemmed from a tragic blend of exhaustion and unregulated prescriptions. Still, the event fueled the continuing narrative that the Golden Age's glamorous facade often concealed a darker, more dangerous reality. 10th, Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis, famed for his slapstick comedy, often threw himself, quite literally, into his performances. However, a 1965 pratfall nearly turned deadly during a Las Vegas stage show. As reported by Variety, Lewis executed a comedic tumble from a piano, but landed at an odd angle, snapping his spine in several places. The impact instantly paralyzed him from the waist down, and an ambulance rushed him to the hospital. Backstage whispers suggested it might have been part of a new, riskier routine that Lewis had been rehearsing. Conspiracy-minded fans argued that internal tensions with producers had pushed Lewis to prove he could still command the stage. Lewis's own recollections, detailed in his book Dean and Me, mention no external plot, only that he underestimated the potential harm of his comedic stunts. In the immediate aftermath, rumors circulated that the spinal injury was so severe, Lewis might never walk again. Surgeons inserted a series of steel pins and performed fusion operations to stabilize his back. Over time, he regained mobility, but was left with chronic pain, fueling an addiction to painkillers that haunted him for years. Despite lingering talk of sabotage, most evidence points to a comedian's relentless drive to keep the laughs coming, no matter the peril. 11. Clark Gable, nicknamed the King of Hollywood, was at the height of his fame when Gone with the Wind began filming in 1939. During the dramatic burning of Atlanta scene, towering flames and thick smoke posed real dangers to the cast and crew. Studio records from Selznick International Pictures describe how Gable, determined to be on set for authenticity, inhaled large amounts of noxious fumes. Onlookers later claimed that he collapsed once the cameras stopped rolling, gasping for air. Reports in the press glossed over the severity of the incident, describing it as a minor fainting spell. However, rumors circulated that the production was behind schedule and that safety protocols were sidelined to keep the shoot moving. A few tabloids seized on the idea that rival studios wanted to sabotage David O. Selznick's massive project, a notion never substantiated. Gable's personal physician was said to have warned him about the potential long-term damage from smoke inhalation. Yet Gable soldiered on, finishing the film that would become one of his most iconic roles. Despite the whispers, official statements boiled down to accidents happen on big sets. For Gable fans, the near-fatal incident only burnished his image as a dedicated leading man unafraid of real-life flames. 12th, John Wayne. John Wayne was synonymous with rugged masculinity, famously performing many of his own stunts. While shooting The Alamo in 1960, a project he also directed, Wayne found himself at the epicenter of a pyrotechnic mishap. Biographers recount a scene involving the detonation of a cannon-loaded fort wall. The explosives were set to blow in carefully timed stages, but an early trigger sent debris flying toward Wayne. Local Texan newspapers wrote of how the Duke narrowly sidestepped a chunk of shattered masonry that could have killed him on impact. Rumors popped up soon after. Some speculated that Wayne's directorial inexperience or friction with the film's demolitions team led to the misfire. Others insisted it was a malicious act from disgruntled crew members, though no concrete evidence ever surfaced. Wayne, stoic as ever, publicly shrugged it off, attributing the explosion to a mere technical glitch. Production logs from United Artists mention the incident, but also emphasize the complexity of filming large-scale battle sequences. The controversy gradually fizzled, overshadowed by the film's eventual release. Yet the story of Wayne's close brush with flying shrapnel became another chapter in the legend of a star who always stood toe-to-toe with danger and lived to tell the tale. 13th, Bette Davis. Bette Davis earned a reputation for headstrong intensity, both on and off the screen. During the filming of Mr. Skeffington, 1944, Davis suffered a serious health crisis that left her dangerously weak. According to production memos from Warner Brothers, she experienced bouts of severe exhaustion and a pneumonia-like infection that spiked her temperature to perilous heights. Wardrobe staff recalled Davis shivering uncontrollably between takes, yet determined to stay in character. When news of her hospitalization leaked, Hollywood gossip columnists pounced. One rumor claimed Davis was feigning illness to force script changes. Another contended that a rival actress might have poisoned her dressing room, citing Davis's numerous studio battles. Medical notes, however, confirmed a legitimate infection worsened by relentless filming schedules. Though doctors advised an extended rest, Davis returned to the set after only a brief recovery period, likely fearing a shutdown could stall her career. The final cut of Mr. Skeffington revealed no hint of the turmoil. Officially, the near-fatal scare was chalked up to overwork, a verdict that many found unsurprising given Davis's tireless devotion to her craft. Even so, the swirl of conspiracies only cemented her image as a larger-than-life figure who refused to let anything, not even a health scare, dim her star power. 14. Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra may have been the chairman of the board, but in 1950, his career and life teetered on a razor's edge. Plagued by personal and professional stress, Sinatra suffered a vocal cord hemorrhage that left him bleeding from his throat and barely able to speak. Medical reports from the time, referenced in Kitty Kelly's biography, His Way, underscore the severity of the crisis. Doctors warned that he might lose his voice entirely, or even face life-threatening complications if the bleeding wasn't controlled. Music executives feared for their investments, while gossip columns leaped to sensational conclusions. Some whispered about mafia entanglements, claiming Sinatra's hemorrhage was induced by external persuasion. Others suggested a meltdown from heartbreak over Ava Gardner, implying emotional turmoil triggered the rupture. Sinatra himself described it later as the result of one too many nights belting high notes, without adequate rest. Though he emerged physically weakened, Sinatra used the harrowing episode to reinvent himself, shifting from the teen idol image to a deeper, more resonant vocal style. Official medical statements identified overexertion as the sole cause. Yet speculation about shady undercurrents lingered in pop culture lore, fueling the enduring mystique of a star who appeared at times larger than life and just as fragile. 15th, Gene Kelly. Gene Kelly dazzled audiences with fluid dance routines in classics like Singin' in the Rain. Yet behind the scenes of that legendary 1952 musical lay a health crisis few fans knew about. Filming the title number required hour after hour of performing in recycled water under studio lights. Hollywood Citizen News later reported that Kelly was running a fever of over 100 degrees Fahrenheit during some takes. His persistent flu-like symptoms worsened, and pneumonia soon followed, threatening to halt production entirely. In typical Hollywood fashion, rumors sprang up that Kelly was pushing his body to the limit to compete with co-stars or impress studio heads. Some cynics theorized the pneumonia was exaggerated to stoke publicity, while more conspiratorial minds alleged sabotage by staff who resented Kelly's perfectionism. Physicians consulted by MGM insisted he cease dancing for weeks, but Kelly returned sooner, determined to keep the production on schedule. Fortunately, he recovered without permanent damage, though the ordeal underscored just how punishing the iconic scene was. Official accounts blame an overpacked timetable, excessive water exposure, and a lack of rest. Despite any speculation, most cast and crew simply admired Kelly's grit. He managed to transform a physically taxing shoot into one of Hollywood's most enduring cinematic moments. 16th, Maureen O'Hara. Maureen O'Hara, celebrated for her fiery screen presence, faced a real-life trial of fire, or rather, steel, while filming The Swashbuckling at Swords Point, 1952. Cast as a skilled fencer, O'Hara insisted on performing her own fencing sequences. Stunt coordinators used sharp-edged prop swords for realism, but one afternoon, a co-star misjudged his thrust. According to studio documents from RKO Pictures, the blade's tip sliced through O'Hara's costume, narrowly missing a vital artery. News of the close call spread quickly. Whispers circulated that internal tensions between the cast members led to the accident, while a few dramatic columns hinted at hidden vendettas. O'Hara, however, refuted any such claims, praising her co-star's swordsmanship as generally impeccable and insisting the mishap was a simple error. She did sustain a painful wound, which required stitches and bed rest. Undeterred, O'Hara resumed filming, brandishing her sword with the same fierce determination that made her one of Hollywood's beloved action heroines. Official investigations pointed to a lack of adequate rehearsal time. Conspiracy theories gradually faded, leaving behind only the legend of O'Hara's formidable bravery and her unwavering dedication to carrying each scene, sword in hand. Hazards be damned. 17th, Audrey Hepburn. Although Audrey Hepburn exuded grace and poise on screen, her early life under Nazi occupation in the Netherlands was fraught with danger. Historical records indicate that she suffered from malnutrition and anemia to such an extent that she was considered at risk of organ failure. Biographers like Donald Spoto have chronicled how Hepburn, as a teenager, narrowly avoided becoming another casualty of the horrific circumstances surrounding World War II. Rations were scarce, and the threat of violence loomed constantly. Rumors circulated post-war about an angelic child star who survived thanks to secret funds from her aristocratic mother, while others floated conspiracies that the family cut clandestine deals with occupying forces. In truth, interviews with Hepburn's son revealed that the family's survival was largely due to resourcefulness and luck, with no hidden bargains. Once liberated, Hepburn's fragile health nearly derailed her dreams of becoming a ballet dancer. She had to rebuild her strength through careful nutrition and physical therapy. Ironically, the near-death experience forged the empathy and humanitarian spirit she displayed throughout her adult life. Despite the conspiratorial chatter, the official word from her own recollections underscores a stark reality. She simply managed to endure, day by desperate day. 18. Ingrid Bergman. Swedish-born Ingrid Bergman first journeyed to Hollywood in the late 1930s, a transatlantic trip that, according to her letters, came perilously close to disaster. While crossing from Europe to the United States, the ocean liner encountered a severe storm, damaging its hull and threatening to capsize. Though newspapers in America barely mentioned the incident, Bergman recounted in her autobiography that waves towering over 50 feet flooded parts of the ship, creating an alarming tilt. For a time, panic reigned among passengers, and some crew members whispered that sabotage could be involved, pointing to wartime tensions simmering in Europe. A few sensationalist columns seized on the rumor, tying Bergman's name to the swirl of unverified claims. Maritime authorities later issued a statement blaming extreme weather, dismissing sabotage outright. Bergman arrived in the U.S. shaken but resolute. The near-fatal journey became a footnote in her storied career, overshadowed by her successes in films like Casablanca. Yet she occasionally alluded to it in interviews, stressing how the terrifying ordeal left her appreciative of every moment afterward. Official logs confirm that the ship indeed faced precarious conditions. Still, no evidence was ever found of foul play, leaving the tale as one more dramatic page in Bergman's life story. 19. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth's sultry dances lit up movies like Gilda, but a lesser-known scare occurred on the set of Down to Earth, 1947. Part of her routine involved dancing amid elaborate stage lighting powered by older, high-voltage equipment. A malfunction one afternoon caused an electrical short, sending sparks showering onto Hayworth's costume. Hollywood Citizen News archives mention that she shrieked and jumped away, just as a current sizzled through a nearby metal catwalk. Rumors circulated that Hayworth had been targeted by rival dancers who envied her stardom, or that the film's producer wanted to humble a diva. However, production electricians filed an incident report citing faulty wiring as the clear culprit. Hayworth herself apparently expressed more annoyance than fear, telling colleagues she would have kept dancing if the sparks hadn't threatened to ignite her gown. Though she suffered minor burns on one arm, Hayworth returned to work swiftly, downplaying the event in press interviews. That didn't stop the tabloids from spinning stories about curses and conspiracies. Yet official memos from Columbia Pictures portray the episode as an isolated electrical mishap in an aging soundstage. Regardless, it became a fabled moment that cemented Hayworth's image as an unflappable star who could handle danger, both on screen and off. 20th, Marlon Brando. By the early 1960s, Marlon Brando's intense performances had already redefined American acting. Then came Mutiny on the Bounty, 1962, a famously troubled shoot beset by budget overruns and disagreements galore. During filming in Tahiti, the production team attempted to capture a realistic storm sequence at sea. Eyewitness accounts, later referenced in the Saturday Evening Post, described how the ship faced genuine gale force winds, rocking violently and threatening to toss Brando and crew overboard. Gossip swirled that Brando's on-set demands had sabotaged safety measures, while a separate rumor suggested inclement weather had been invited by local islanders displeased with the studio's presence. Official logs, however, point to a simple tropical storm that caught the production off guard. Brando nearly slipped off the sloop's slick deck at one point, saved only by a quick-thinking co-star who grabbed his arm. Although some corners of the press accused Brando of staging the drama for publicity, the near-death aspect was very real. A sudden wave could have swept him away in seconds. Production halted briefly for repairs, and the star returned to complete the film. The ordeal added another layer of legend to a project already drowning in controversy, exemplifying how on-set chaos sometimes echoed Brando's own tempestuous, larger-than-life persona.